There is a kind of silence that arrives every year on the same date. Not the silence of forgetting, but the silence of choosing not to speak. While the world marks time with cake and candles, some people let the day pass like any other, unannounced, unacknowledged, deliberately ordinary. They are not bitter. They are not broken. They simply do not celebrate. To the outside world, it looks like avoidance. To them, it feels like protection, because somewhere along the way, birthdays stopped being about joy and became about something else: expectation, performance, the unbearable weight of being seen. And in the quiet of their uncelebrated year, they have learned to carry a question no one asks out loud. What do you do when the day meant to honor your existence only reminds you of how difficult it is to feel worthy of it? There is a particular kind of dread that builds in the weeks before. Not panic, not fear, just a low, steady hum of discomfort that settles in the chest and refuses to leave, because they know what's coming. The messages, the calls, the well-meaning friends who insist on making plans, the co-workers who bring cupcakes to the office and gather around with forced cheer, the expectation that they will smile, that they will be grateful, that they will somehow transform into the version of themselves that everyone wants to see. And they cannot. For people who don't celebrate birthdays, the day is not a gift. It is a spotlight they never asked for, a stage they never wanted to stand on, because while the world sees celebration, they feel exposure. While others see love, they feel obligation. The gap between what a birthday is supposed to mean and what it actually feels like becomes unbearable. It often begins in childhood, not always with trauma, but with a kind of quiet disappointment that accumulates over time. Maybe their birthday was forgotten once, or twice, or every year. Maybe it was remembered but felt hollow: gifts without presents, parties without warmth. Or maybe the opposite happened. Maybe their birthday became a performance for others, a day when parents showcased their child, when relatives demanded displays of gratitude, when the celebration was never really about them at all. In those moments, something shifts. The day that was meant to honor their existence begins to feel like evidence of their inadequacy. They learn that being celebrated comes with conditions, that love is tied to their ability to perform happiness, that visibility is not the same as being truly seen. So they grow quieter. They stop expecting, and eventually they stop wanting. But the world does not let them disappear, because birthdays, in most cultures, are non-negotiable. They are rituals of connection, proof of care, a way for others to say, "You matter." And when someone refuses to participate, it confuses people. It makes them uncomfortable. They take it personally. "You have to let us celebrate you. Just this once. Don't be difficult." And beneath those words is an accusation they've heard their whole lives. You are asking for too much by asking for nothing. The truth is more complicated. People who don't celebrate birthdays are not rejecting love. They are protecting themselves from the specific kind of love that feels conditional, the love that requires them to be joyful on command, the love that turns their existence into an event that must be managed, performed, and endured. They have learned that being celebrated often means being reduced, that the complexity of who they are, their grief, their ambivalence, their quiet need for control gets flattened into a single narrative. Today, you are supposed to be happy, and they are tired of pretending, so they opt out. Not because they don't want connection, but because they need it on different terms. They need the kind of presence that doesn't come with balloons and expectations, the kind of love that doesn't require them to be anything other than what they are. But opting out comes with its own weight. Guilt, mostly. The guilt of disappointing people who genuinely care. The guilt of being difficult when it would be easier to just go along. The guilt of feeling broken in a world that insists celebration is natural, universal, inherent to being human. And so they carry both the discomfort of being celebrated and the shame of refusing it. What no one tells them is that their resistance is not a flaw. It is a boundary, a quiet insistence that their worth is not tied to a single day, that their existence does not need to be validated by ritual, that being loved should never feel like a performance. But understanding that takes time, and before they can get there, they must first sit with the question that haunts them every year. Why does the day meant to honor me feel like the hardest day to survive? For a long time, they apologize. Every year, when someone asks what they're doing for their birthday, they soften the truth. They say they're keeping it low-key. They say they're busy. They laugh it off, make it seem like a quirk, a preference as neutral as preferring tea over coffee. Because the real answer, "I don't celebrate because it hurts," feels too heavy to say out loud. But underneath the apologies, something else is happening. A kind of quiet resistance is taking root. That it starts small. The first time they say no to a birthday dinner, and don't immediately follow it with an explanation. The first time they let a well-meaning text go unanswered without guilt consuming them. The first time they realize that the discomfort they feel is not because they are ungrateful, but because the celebration was never really designed for them in the first place. And slowly they begin to understand, opting out is not avoidance, it is self-preservation. Because people who don't celebrate birthdays are not withdrawing from joy. They are withdrawing from a specific version of joy that requires them to ignore their own emotional reality. They are stepping away from a ritual that insists they should feel a certain way on a certain day, regardless of what is actually true for them in that moment. Psychologically, this is a form of emotional autonomy, a refusal to let external expectations dictate their inner world. And while it may look like resistance to others, to them it feels like relief. But the relief is complicated, because even as they claim the right to opt out, they are haunted by the belief that something is wrong with them, that normal people want to be celebrated, that healthy people enjoy being the center of attention, that their inability to feel grateful for the effort others put in is proof of some fundamental brokenness. And so the internal conflict deepens. On one side, the knowledge that celebrating feels wrong, performative, emotionally exhausting. On the other, the fear that refusing to celebrate makes them selfish, cold, difficult to love. They exist in the space between these two truths, unable to reconcile them. What they don't yet see is that their resistance is not about rejecting connection, it is about redefining it. Because the people who don't celebrate birthdays often crave intimacy more deeply than most. They want to be known, not showcased. They want presence, not performance. They want love that is steady and quiet, not loud and conditional. And birthdays, as they have experienced them, rarely offer that. Instead, birthdays become a test. A day when love is measured by visibility. How many people show up, how elaborate the gesture, how much effort was made. And for someone who has learned that their worth is fragile, conditional, easily revoked, that test feels impossible to pass. So they stop taking it. The turning point comes when they stop apologizing, when they stop framing their choice as an inconvenience to others and start recognizing it as an act of self-respect. And they realize that the guilt they carry is not theirs to hold, it belongs to a world that taught them their boundaries were burdens. And in that realization, something shifts. They begin to see that honoring themselves does not require a date on the calendar, that their existence does not need external validation to matter, that the love they are worthy of is not the kind that demands a performance, but the kind that allows them to simply be. Some of them find new rituals, small, private ways of marking time that feel authentic, a quiet walk, a day off work spent alone, a journal entry, a single act of kindness toward themselves that no one else will ever see. These rituals are not celebrations in the traditional sense. They are acknowledgments, gentle, unwitnessed moments of saying, I am here, I survived another year, that is enough. Others let the day pass entirely, and that, too, is a choice worth honoring, because the psychology of people who don't celebrate birthdays is not about lack. It is about discernment. It is about knowing the difference between connection and performance, between love and obligation, between what the world insists they should want and what they actually need. And in a culture that equates celebration with care, that discernment is an act of quiet rebellion. They are not broken, they are not cold, they are simply people who have learned that their worth is not tied to a single day, that being loved should never feel like surviving, that the most honest way to honor their existence is to stop pretending it looks like everyone else's. And maybe, in the end, that is the truest celebration of all. Not the noise, not the attention, not the performance, but the freedom to exist on their own terms, seen or unseen, celebrated or not, and to know, deep down, that they are enough exactly as they are.